Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Hidalgo, the Communications Officer of ICLEI Southeast Asia, and I will be your MC for today. Thank you all for attending this discussion on stakeholder-driven adaptation and resilience initiatives. For the better part of 1 hour, we will be tackling the importance of bottom-up approaches in building resilience and adapting to climate change at the local level. So just some quick house rules today. Bahasa Indonesia to English interpretation is available. To access this in your meeting/webinar controls, click interpretation at the bottom of your interface, then click the language that you would like to hear. Optionally, to hear the interpreted language only, click mute original audio. Attendees are muted by default to ensure the smooth flow of our program. Please use the chat box for any comments or questions you may have. Feel free to share your thoughts relevant to the discussions at hand. Likewise, feel free to use the emojis to express how you feel about the discussions as they happen. We will be having Zoom polls throughout our program. We encourage you to participate in these polls. In fact, you're seeing a poll now on your screen asking where you are joining us from. Do answer so we can better see our reach this afternoon. And for those who will be needing a certificate of attendance, we will be disseminating a Google Form survey link by the end of this event. Stay tuned and answer it for your certificate. Before we get started with our program, I'd like to ask our panelists if they can kindly open their cameras for a quick photo opportunity. All right, Junie, if you can help me count off the photo while our panelists are open. It looks like most of our attendees are from Asia, with Africa and Europe not far behind. We also do have some attendees from South America. So again, welcome to everyone. So if our panelists are ready, I'll take a photo in 3, 2, 1, smile. One more, please. All right, 3, 2, 1, and smile. All right, thank you so much to our panelists. At this point, I would like to call on the Regional Director of ICLEI Southeast Asia to welcome us to this discussion. Sir Vic, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon to everyone. Before anything else, I would like to apologize that some of our listed panelists canceled at the last minute due to urgent matters that needs their personal attention. I would also like to thank the other panelists that are here, Mr. Alan Silayan, Chief of Party Climate Resilient Cities, Catholic Relief Services. I think there will be a representative of Tanjung, Pinang, and Ms. Pamela Kabakungan, Low Emission Development Manager of ICLEI Southeast Asia, for sharing not only their time, but also their experience and knowledge on the subject matter. Southeast Asia is a highly diverse region consisting of 11 countries that registered a total population of 674 million. Income and wealth are highly disparate as two of the wealthiest and two of the poorest countries are located in the sub-region. Southeast Asia is incredibly complex, but its challenges are often unique from one community to the next. Has made it difficult to solve common problems. It is also one of the regions it is also one of the world's foremost regions bearing the brunt of climate change. Sea level rise, stronger typhoons, floods, droughts, biodiversity losses, and other climate-related hazards are immediate challenges that cities must overcome. Their subsequent lingering socioeconomic chain of effects further underscores the importance of immediate, decisive, and impactful climate actions. As the effects of greenhouse gas emissions reduction efforts will take some time to be felt, Southeast Asian cities must continue building their resilience against climate hazards. However, these dangers have become so great over the past few years that various local governments around the region have already declared climate emergencies and are ramping up their current and planned resilience efforts. A multi-stakeholder and bottom-up approach has been proven to be an effective way of building resilience. This enables the innovative co-creation, co-ownership of disaster preparedness, management, and recovery actions that are tailored to local contexts and realities. Due to the region's experience with climate hazard, these cities have developed the necessary knowledge and expertise in strengthening their citizens by improving local capabilities against disasters and shocks. This virtual offering will thus present multi-stakeholder resilience building practices of select Southeast Asian local governments, including those that have declared climate emergencies in their bid to bolster themselves against the effects of climate emergency and inspire other local governments climate emergencies with accompanying plans of action towards resilience, innovate resilience measures, and embed disaster risk reduction and management with other sectors, facilitate the institutionalization of meaningful multi-stakeholder approaches to resilience. Meaningful engagement should not be limited to consultations alone, but should also consist of engagement in the implementation. There are a lot of best practices, especially in the region, regarding multi-stakeholder partnership. One case is probably Seberang Perai, where they have introduced participatory budgeting in their city. So Seberang Perai allocates a specific amount where the local stakeholders and citizens will select which priority project should be funded in that particular year. Another example probably would be the Gupan City in the Philippines, where it's actually the local stakeholder committing resources to the city to address the hazards of climate change. On this note, I think the other panelists will also share their best practices. So again, good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Sir Vic, for those welcome remarks. At this point, I'd like to ask our moderator and panelists to turn on your video cameras as we introduce you all one by one. Our panel discussions today will be moderated by Mr. Arif Wibowo, the country manager of ICLEI Indonesia. Before being with the ICLEI team, Arif has worked on environmental and climate issues at the Indonesian Ministry of Environment and Forestry since 2004. His work experience includes the development, mainstreaming, promotion, and implementation of climate change adaptation policy at the national and subnational levels. Next, we have as our panelist Mr. Riono, the head of the Environmental Agency of Tanjung, Pinang City. Riono has nearly 17 years of experience serving in the Tanjung Pinang office, with his most recent position being a head of the Environmental Agency of Tanjung Pinang from 2021 up to the present. Previously, he served as the city's regional secretary from 2014 to 2019. Welcome, Mr. Riono. And joining our panel as well is Mr. Alan Luis Silayan, the Chief of Party of the Climate Resilient Cities Projects. He combines expertise in climate change adaptation management, engagement with the private sector, and technical and city-level coordination. Prior to joining the CRS project, Mr. Silayan served as an independent consultant for UNDP, where he oversaw the development of the Philippine Nationally Determined Contributions Implementation Plan for the country's Climate Change Commission. Rounding off our panel is Ms. Pamela Kabakungan, the Low Emission Development Strategies Manager of ICLEI Southeast Asia. overseeing program management and building relationships with member and network cities of ICLEI and with like-minded organizations. She works with local governments in establishing city-level GHG emissions inventories, formulating local climate action plans, and climate data disclosure. Makati City, Philippines, and Seberang Peray, Malaysia expressed their regrets, as Cervic said, that they are not able to join due to unforeseen circumstances. However, they have kindly recorded their presentation. First, let's watch this video from the mayor of Makati City, the Honorable Marlene Abigail Pinang.
Distinguished guests, fellow speakers, and partners in adaptation and resilience, a pleasant morning to everyone. In Makati, we recognize the importance of engaging with different societal sectors in order to create a more resilient and sustainable city. In fact, our decision-making process is driven by stakeholder engagement in line with our thrust of inclusive and participatory governance. Our town hall meetings and community dialogues provide an opportunity for Makatizans to speak their minds about their foremost concerns and offer possible solutions as well. We also use social media platforms to obtain direct inputs from constituents and solicit suggestions for ways we can better serve them. Through public hearings and consultative dialogues with stakeholders, we have been able to integrate sensible provisions in climate-related city ordinances and develop initiatives tailored to their needs. In this way, we have gained greater compliance and support among target beneficiaries. We have also institutionalized the participation of civil society organizations and the business sector by granting them seats in major policy-making bodies. These include the City Development Council, Environmental Protection Council, Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, and Climate Change Committee, among others. Inputs and feedback gathered from various sectors inform the development and implementation of programs, policies, and activities aimed to build Makati's resilience and sustainability. We also conduct regular monitoring and evaluation of existing initiatives in coordination with various stakeholders to determine if goals are being met. By keeping them in the loop, we have promoted a strong sense of ownership, which is crucial to sustaining their active involvement and support. Declaring a climate emergency in August last year has been instrumental in accelerating our progress towards becoming a more resilient city. This declaration has raised awareness among citizens about the urgency of adapting to climate change and has galvanized them into action. It has also added impetus to our application of the whole of society approach in combating climate change. The business sector has since stepped up efforts to invest in green practices and green infrastructure, and we continue to collaborate on sustainable solutions together with national government agencies, the academe, and the international community. Overall, we are confident that through strength partnerships and stakeholder-driven initiatives, we can build a more resilient and sustainable Makati.
Thank you very much for that video from Makati. Makati has also been declared as Southeast Asia's very first resilience hub by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. We do have some representatives from Makati in attendance today, so if you have any questions to the city, please input them in the chat box. Now let's watch this video from Mr. Ahmad Zabri bin Mohammed Sarajuddin, the Seberang Peray Director of Urban Services.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to everyone. First of all, I would like to thank ICLEI for inviting Seberang Perai to be a part of Daring Cities 2023. My name is Ahmad Zabri Muhammad Sarajuddin. I'm the Director of Urban Services Department in Seberang Perai City Council. So today I would like to give some input regarding the roles played by stakeholders in order for us to prioritize climate adaptation and resilient goals. This is the perception in the terms of Seberang Perai, ladies and gentlemen. As we can see in the next slide, Seberang Perai, or maybe the Pinang state as a whole, we have Pinang 20 goals that encompasses about a family-focused, green and smart state that inspire the nation. Within the Pinang 2030 framework, we have 4 basic themes, that is increase livability to enhance quality of life, upgrade the economy to raise household incomes, C. Empower people to strengthen civic participation. And also D. Invest in the built environment to improve resilience. If you can see, the topic for today actually focus more on Team C and Team D. That is regarding the civic participation and also the building of resilience in our city. Right, ladies and gentlemen, Seberang Perai with our strategic direction. Next slide. We have a vision to be resilient, inclusive, green, competitive and technology-driven smart city with a mission to provide urban service, development planning and infrastructure efficiency effectively and responsive to the needs of the community in Seberang Perai. All this vision and mission is actually to cater for our goals that to become carbon neutral city by 2030 and also zero carbon city by 2050. With that, ladies and gentlemen, Seberang Perai have highlighted 5 of our commitment, which is the first commitment is about to uphold the Pinang 2030 targets. Seberang Perai City Council is also committed to a green and low emission development. Seberang Perai City Council is committed to resilient city. Seberang Perai is committed to be inclusive, equitable and people-centered in terms of development, and also be a competitive and smart city in terms of development. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about the civic participation and also how to prioritize adaptation and also resilience in that sense. Right, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see on the next slide, this is a part of the programs that have been conducted within Seberang Perai. And also this has been a part and parcel of all of our program since 2015. We have already introduced gender responsive and participatory budgeting models in all of our programs, projects and also budget allocated in order for us to do development and also planning in Seberang Perai. During this GRPB town hall session, we have a lot of commitment and also ideas from the stakeholders, and also this is where we will set a targets and also prioritize on our programs that need to be conducted within particular years, ladies and gentlemen, as you can see with the pictures. So in results of this town hall session, ladies and gentlemen, every year Seberang Perai will produce a Seberang Perai corporate priorities, where that is a strategic document for us to implement the project and also at the same time for us to allocate certain budget for the implementation of the project. And also in these corporate priorities which developed together with the civic and also the NGOs and so on, and for us to prioritize which are the project and programs that need to be implemented according to priority set during this town hall session. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, on the next slide, these are all the Seberang Perai corporate KPIs that have been highlighted for us to achieve within until 2030. That is to increase our recycling rate to 70%, reduce solid waste production 50% per capita from 1.6 kg to 0.8 kg per capita per day, and also further reduce our greenhouse gas emission from 8 tons to 4 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent in 2030, 15% renewable energy, 100% LED street lights, and also to have 7 central business district with transit-oriented development concept for each of the districts, and also to implement Seberang Perai circular economy, which are one of the key targets that have been identified in Seberang Perai, ladies and gentlemen. Furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, in Seberang Perai, we also would like to highlight our 7 P's program, which 7 P's actually indicate people, public, private, philanthropy, philosopher, planet, partnerships, where all of our programs we will highlight that we need to have the participation of all these 7 components, which are the peoples, which means that the government sectors, the public, which are the civil society, the private, which are the private entity, the philanthropy, those NGOs that can provide some basic help for us, philosopher, which are we required the educators that is from the academic background to come and also have some opinion for us, and also planet, which are the planet Earth, our Mother Nature, partnership in order for us to ensure the balance between the development and also the environmental conservation, ladies and gentlemen. So, in my opinion, in Seberang Pride opinion, it is really important for us to involve with the people in order for us to have a better infrastructure development in Seberang Pride, and also for us to prioritize in terms of resilience and so on. So, for example, we have one project here that is known as PARK. It's our flood control water level warning system, where we have developed this system together with the participation of civil society, and also this system actually help us to monitor the flood level in our city, and also this system can be accessible by the public and can be monitored together, and in order for us to ensure the resilient level, and also the next further action can be taken as fast as possible, ladies and gentlemen. So with that, I would like to say that community stakeholders played an important role in order for us to shape our city, and also to prioritize in terms of climate adaptation and resilience in the city. Thank you very much, everyone.
Again, thank you to Seberang Perai as well as Makati for preparing those videos. If you have any questions you would like to address to the cities, please put them in the chat box or the Q&A box, and we will get them to our city focal representatives. Now, at this point, I turn over the virtual microphone to Paarif to facilitate our panel discussion. Paarif, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. Good afternoon, participants. Straight because we have very short time now, so I would like to invite firstly from the Tanjung Pinang city to share with us their experience regarding how the community stakeholders played a part in shaping the city priority related to the climate change adaptation and resilience. I think, Pak Riono, I would like to have your time, 5 minutes, hopefully. Yeah, we can focus on discussion
Baik.
later on. Thank you.
Udah bisa dimulai, Pak Arif?
Silakan, Pak. Please.
Ya. Baik.
Lima
Terima kasih.
menit ya, Pak. Nanti untuk pancingan
Ya.
diskusi.
Ya. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang. Salam sejahtera
Peace
untuk
be upon us all. Good afternoon,
Bapak Ibu peserta daring City.
ladies and gentlemen of the participants during City. As you can see in this background, the President Joko Widodo is planting mangrove. It was conducted last year in Pulau Setoko, a part of Riau province, where Tanjung Pinang is the capital city of the province. Mangrove has a very important role from the mitigation and adaptation level, and this is a very important action, especially in small islands like Riau Island. So today I would like to share my experience of Tanjung Pinang in adapting the climate change. Before I explain it further, let me introduce you about the profile of Tanjung Pinang. Tanjung Pinang locates in the south part of Bintan Island, and it has direct access to the Singapore and Malaysia with a distance of 100 kilometers. Tanjung Pinang with its 15,037 hectares, and it consists of 4 districts, and most of this is a coastal area. The rain level is 288 millimeters, and the average temperature is 26.9 Celsius, while the number of population is 239,000 in 2022, and the number of population will keep increase every year. By this kind of situation, Tanjung Pinang has a risk and climate change danger, which are flood, because of the raise level of the sea. These problems become the concern of the local government So that's why improving the quality of the environment becomes one of the strategy for the long-term planning of Tanjung Pinang City in 2018 to 2023. So in order to achieve those goals, we have conducted some points. First, we compiled strategy document to reduce the danger risk. And the second one is we strengthen the capacity of resilience and adaptation of the community toward the climate change danger, or we call it as climate village program. And we also engages the participation of the population of our people. But we also have the other frameworks for the climate village program, which are identification of the risk of climate change, identification of emission and greenhouse gas, the development and also the increase of public capacity to support the adaptation and mitigation of climate change. And we also increase the plan of adaptation and mitigation for the climate change in local level, which is public. And then we also conduct adaptation and mitigation for climate change local based of the public. This program is started since 2017 in 3 locations, and in 2023, the number of the location extends into 40 locations, and it is in 4 districts. And the strategies to improve the partnership with the stakeholders is by collaborating hexahelix. It includes the local people, government, university, private sectors, media, and NGOs. Of these 6 stakeholders, Tanjung Pinang is able to prove that the public has a very strong role to make the adaptation and mitigation program succeed. So public roles as initiator or accelerator in conducting this program, and also they become the beneficiaries of the action plan. And not to mention that the roles of the stakeholders, just like the university, become the conceptor from the 3 Dharma universities, and also the regulator and controllers. Besides that, the business sectors also become an enablers that make us able to make the technology infrastructure. And besides that, the mass media become as an expander to distribute information. And for the NGO becomes the catalysts that can gather people with the same interest. And in this slide, you can see some photos or recommendations taken for the village community program. First, we have waste bank, mangrove planting, cleaning the beaches, FGD between stakeholders, and also we conduct talk show about environment topics to raise the awareness of the public. We also make organic waste compost, and then we build urban farming. We also would like to appreciate the government of the Tanjung Pinang and also the other stakeholders for their active roles in adaptation and mitigation of this climate change. Thank you.
Very compact presentation. I think we have already heard some key point there. We can discuss later on. Now, we would like to listen the experience from Alan on behalf of the, as consultant, maybe practitioners on these issues. Maybe the same question, Alan. Maybe you can share how your experience related to community engagement in terms of adaptations and resiliencies. Please, time is yours, 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you, Ikle, for the invitation. I am the Chief of Party of the Climate Resilient Cities project, and allow me to just give first a brief overview of the project. This is in partnership with USAID, and it's a 5-year project which started in 2021. So we're at the tail end of our second year. And the goal of the project is to improve the resilience of Philippine cities by strengthening the adaptive capacities to manage the impacts of climate change and disasters. And we do this through 3 key objectives. One is the use of climate data. We assist cities to develop climate enhanced or climate hazard data, hazard maps, for example. And we try to improve the city's capacity to access climate financing. This is a second objective. And the third objective is to implement nature-based solutions at the local level. The project is in 6 cities across the Philippines, so 2 cities in the main island of Luzon, namely Batangas and Legazpi, 2 cities in the island group of the Visayas, namely Iloilo and Borongan, and 2 cities in the main island of Mindanao, which is Cotabato and Zamboanga. So this is our experience in terms of stakeholder engagement, and some of our learnings that we've had throughout the 2 years that we've been implementing. So for each city, we do need to look at a tailor-fit approach for each of the cities, and we have done this through a baseline assessment, which we call the Climate Change Capacity Assessment Framework, which analyzes the capacity not just of the local government, but also the stakeholders surrounding the government, including NGOs, the academe. The idea of which is we want to form an ecosystem around the local government to sustain the efforts that we are doing. So when it comes to, for example, let's say climate finance, even after the project ends, we're hoping that the academe can take on assisting the local government in developing proposals for climate finance. We've also seen a strong linkage amongst the different components of the project. So climate risk data, climate finance. There is a clear need for good climate data in order to be able to access climate finance, to be able to implement nature-based solutions. And for each of our projects, we found that flexibility in the different policies for each local government is also quite critical. For all the hazard maps that we've developed, we've had community validation of our hazard maps, particularly in those high hazard areas. So we've had local village consultation meetings to just verify the maps that we've developed, which is being used currently by the local government in developing their future plans for climate adaptation. Also, in all of our cities, we have constituted a city. We have an embedded city staff, but also we've developed a city technical working group for climate resilience. So this is composed of local government representatives, the private sector, also the NGO group, and the academe. So this is an opportunity for the stakeholders to have a say in how the project moves forward, but also to provide a clear idea on the needs of the different sectors when it comes to climate resilience. Throughout our project, we also have a gender and social inclusion component, which cuts across all of our implementation, and this ensures the inclusiveness of all our implementation programs. And as mentioned, and this point is the climate financing is crucial in ensuring project sustainability. For the last 2 points, we also find the engagement with the private sector as a key component, critical component. We have, for example, apart from assisting the cities to develop proposals and writing proposals, we also have a city resilience challenge where we bring together the private sector and the needs of the cities to be able to have a good exchange of how they can support one another during the extreme weather events and also in preparation for these events. Lastly is in terms of stakeholder engagement, we find that having a clear designated national government partner for the project is also quite key. So for the Climate Resilient Cities project, we are very much, we're working closely with the Department of Natural Resources and Environment, and also the Climate Change Commission at the national level. So we ensure that the implementation of the project is aligned fully with the national programs and national vision for climate change and climate change adaptation at the national level. So I'll end my presentation there, and we can have a discussion
Great.
shortly. Back to
Thank
you.
you, Alan. Thank you.
Welcome.
Right. Yeah. Lastly, we would like to listen from the my colleagues. Pam, time is yours.
Thank you back, Arif. I have not prepared a presentation, but I would just like to quickly share the experiences of the projects we worked at ICLE, and the focus on the community stakeholder, how community stakeholders have indeed take part in shaping priorities for adaptation and resilience. So we at ICLE, we mostly work with local governments, and it is inevitable and it is important for us to also touch base with the communities of local governments that we work with. And this is to make sure that the recommendations that we put forward to the local governments are tailored to the vulnerabilities and diverse needs and concerns of community members to enhance their adaptive capacities. So we are coming into these communities equipped with data and information through review of related literature, scenario modelings, etc. And while this data and information are credible to use on its own, we also have to acknowledge that there might be unique circumstances and information that can be gathered from inputs of local stakeholders themselves, and this can validate and even enhance the quality of data to be used for adaptation planning. So, for example, residents, nonprofit organizations, local businesses, advocacy groups, etc., that have been living or working on a certain area, they already possess valuable knowledge about the area's historical patterns of climate variabilities, profiles of the vulnerable population who may be disproportionately impacted by climate related events, and they may also share some ideas on what adaptation solutions they have been doing with their existing practices and resources. So this information can increase the accuracy of secondary data that we have at hand, and therefore allow for better tracking of trends later on. And this involvement of stakeholders, even at the data collection and planning stages, can make them feel genuinely seen and heard, and then this can translate into their sense of inclusion and responsibility in co-designing adaptation solutions for the broader community. And the involvement of community stakeholders takes many forms, as discussed by the other panel members earlier, like town hall meetings, public consultations, workshops, even social media polls. So it is important to also understand what format or combination of formats can maximize the collection of inputs and insights from the local stakeholders, and local governments can guide us as partner of local governments on what would resonate best or for their constituents. But lastly, regardless of the format, capacity building workshops are also important to ensure that the stakeholders feel empowered and informed to effectively contribute to these conversations on how they can support the local governments and even the national government in implementing climate adaptation and resilience. That would be all from my side for now, and
Okay.
happy to take on any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Pamela. Right. We have a limited time again and a lot of questions, but I would like to try to catch up. Firstly, maybe I would like to raise the question from the floor regarding related to the financing to Tanjung Pinang, Pak Yono. Maybe you have experience how you try to access to improve your on finance issues, because again you have already very good local adaptation plan, and then proclaim also community level. So how do you explore the potential funding from the any sources? Because many options already raised in some question here.
Ya, terima kasih atas pertanyaan dari rekan sekalian. Tadi saya pernah menyebutkan bahwa untuk menunjukkan proklim ini dengan melakukan kolaborasi heksahelix di antara pemangku kepentingan, bukan hanya peran serta masyarakat, pemerintah.
As said, we will use the hexahelix and we have to engage the government, university, media, and also NGO.
Khususnya karena kita mengajak di sektor swasta, maka
Especially since we will invite and engage the private sectors, we expect that they will have CSR budget, so they can be more concerned to the environment. But what we are developing now is we want to address the waste issue by engaging real estate Indonesia, which is private sector, to care about the environment. And we hope that they can use the plastic waste, and we hope that it can be a paving blocks for them, and the paving block can be utilized by a real estate sector, so they can make a pavement for the field in that housing complex. That's one of the alternative for budget issue.
We can move to Alan. It's a very critical point that you mentioned related to the scientific issue related to data, climate data, vulnerability and risk assessments. How can you ensure that this risk assessment, vulnerability assessment, can be used as a baseline for your pilot cities in six area there? And maybe you have some experience how the response from the government and other stakeholders to promote this scientific information to promote this climate change resiliencies there. Please,
This is
Alan.
thank you very much, Arif. And so, well, first of all, we need to verify all our climate data, so to ensure that what we have is actually related to reality. And part of this is also developing a communications plan. We do have a component of the project to develop a clear communications plan to be able to, first of all, identify the audience that we're communicating to at the local level, but also making sure that what we communicate will be understood. So this communication plan is communicating climate data, but also the implications of this data. So, for example, if there is a certain area that is more vulnerable than others, then certain protocols will need to be developed when it comes to disaster preparedness, when it comes to climate resilience, and there will also need to be no-build zones for the city. So that's some of the implications, and that will need to be communicated as well to the local citizenship. And then from there, once we have the data, this data is also very useful in terms of developing the climate impact chains, or in developing proposals. So as we develop proposals, the data is critical so that we have a very clear logical framework by which we can identify solutions to build the climate change resilience of each of the cities. So in short, climate change data is absolutely critical, not just for knowing where the vulnerabilities are, but also to access climate finance and then ultimately implement the solutions at the local level.
Okay, thank you, Alan. I think a lot of technical issues probably we can identify later on, but I think I would like to ask Pamela, your experience, Do you have any experience how to promote what kind of incentive mechanisms that to encourage the community level as a part of this process, engagement and then sustainability of these climate adaptations and climate change actions and resiliencies in your experience? Because we heard that Pak Riono mentioned regarding the Proclaim Award that already done in Indonesia for several time. Maybe you have uh, other experience and potential idea how can we, try to identify the incentive that encourage the community level. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so I think when talking about incentives, uh, and for the context of this webinar on how to give incentives for the private sector and other uh, local stakeholders to participate in such adaptation actions by local government. Indeed, increasing private sector participation in adaptation and resilience
Mm.
efforts for communities can take different forms and approaches and would depend on what the local government discerns to resonate well with their communities. So one way is developing supportive policies and incentives that encourage participation. So such incentives may take in a fiscal or non-fiscal form, such as providing tax incentives, grants, subsidies, or low-interest loans to private sector entities that are implementing adaptation projects or streamlining permitting processes for the private sector-driven initiatives that promote adaptation and resilience efforts. And I think to further expand also on how to get private sector
Mm.
participation, local governments may also enter into public-private partnership arrangements to uh, plan, fund, and implement large-scale adaptation projects and foster collaboration
Mm.
and networking that maximizes the strengths of the private sector, such as bringing in diverse industry expertise and technologies um, to advance adaptation solutions. So I think these are some of the ways of how cities can better engage their stakeholders, and I believe a lot of cities, as also shared by Tanjung, Pinang, and Saberang Perai, are also doing this as well.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Participant, I think we have very strict time again. I will apologize for some question that probably cannot discuss here, but please, we would like to catch your question. Probably we can communicate later on through our secretariat of this event. But now I would like to request 1 minute closing statement from each of you. Pak Riono, 1 minute untuk penutupan closing. Singkat, enggak, silakan. Pak Riana masih mute.
Gimana
Oke,
Pak? Ulang.
please. Oke. Nah, bisa closing statement 1 menit, 1 minute closing statement.
Please give your closing statement for 1 minute.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Arif.
Thank you, Pak Arif.
Saya sampaikan terkait
There are some things I would like to say related to the
strategi sini bahwa
strategy proclaim.
dilaksanakan atau diselesaikan
There are some things that
individu
cannot
atau
be solved individually.
kota, tetapi harus ada kolaborasi
So there should
sebagai
be a
berbagai
collaboration among many parties, because this is not
itu
an individual project.
perlu saya
We
sampaikan.
have to engage
Termasuk
many
nanti
parties. So
selesaikan
that's what I want to say,
menyangkut dengan iklim.
especially related
Thank you, Pak.
to climate. We cannot
Thank you, Pak.
solve it by
I
ourselves.
think you add some critical issues how to the community approach can what's that upscale, yeah, replicate to other. And then Alan, maybe you have some critical point that you would like to share, stress again, please. 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Pak Arif. And yeah, I think I want to emphasize that climate change affects everyone. So all stakeholders are affected by climate change. And in fact, to your question earlier on incentives, I think nature is already providing us the biggest incentive to move forward. So all sectors need to come to the table and provide support to build their own resilience. But I do feel that the private sector does have a large role to play, and we need to be able to provide a platform for the private sector to have a discussion with the other sectors, like the local government, the CSOs, the academia, and it is up to us to really to
Right.
provide that
Okay.
platform for discussion. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you very much, Alan. Finally, Pam, any strategic statement there, please?
Yes, thank you back, Arif. So I think just from my end, the inclusion of local stakeholders in the planning and decision-making processes allows really for increased public support for initiatives and policies of local governments towards adaptation and resilience. And developing long-term relationships with local stakeholders is based on trust and shared goals. Therefore, a local government should also communicate its actions and expectations to its partners openly and transparently. And lastly, coming from the perspective of non government organizations working with local governments, we are seen as the bridge between the larger community and local governments. Therefore, we also hope that this role of ours can be maximized by legitimizing our role as intermediaries that provide formal and feedback mechanisms and platforms between stakeholders and their local governments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it's very compact discussion, very short time, but I think a lot of things we can catch for our take home anyway. But again, I apologize for the question that cannot be answered directly, but some issues already discussed here. I see, for example, Sheila mentioned about the local community. Was that institutional or strengthening of the community level? I think Brooklyn can be one example because of one of the issues that institutional capacity for the local community very important. Financial issues already some question there also, but I think I would like to make some pointers based on these four, five, five what's then resource presentation and videos as well. So I think the first one that we would like to remind us again that climate change impact is for all, So that's why today's event is very critical point. How can we make sure that participations on this climate change adaptation, climate change mitigation, and resilience is our approach should be promoted. And then we need leaderships again because all local government need how to make it sustainable. How can we align with the climate change and within the development by promoting the scientific issues as indicator for aligning these climate change issues into the development. Indeed, we need financial issues. We need to explore more, funding potential that we can still sometimes difficult to access, especially from scientific issues, because a lot of barrier that maybe we cannot provide with the evidence base. I think it's very critical point that Alan. I think we can learn a lot that local government should provide a baseline studies related to the scientific issues that impact to that local government, local community there. And again, all stakeholders should be the part of this what's that approach, and then incentive. I think very critical point for local community because a lot of local initiative that already mentioned by Rion also. I think it's good example in Indonesia, especially because Proclaim already initiated since 2012, almost 11 years, Pak. Yeah. I think it's very good for Indonesia to have to promote this Proclaim also experience to other stakeholders here. And if you have many questions later on, please contact our colleague here. You can contact Chris or us. I think we can communicate later on. Anyway, its time is very strict, and I hope I can provide you with this good moderator. Hopefully, I can try to get everything that probably you would like to listen. But again, I apologize if there are some missing issues that I probably cannot be answered today. Anyway, we can communicate later on. Then I would like to thanks, and I give back the time to Chris. Time is thank you.
Right. Thank you so much, Pa Arif, Pa Riono, Sir Alan, and Pam for sharing with us your time and for your very insightful discussions. To our audience, please let's give the speakers a virtual round of applause for their efforts. Thank you again to our panelists and moderator. Thank you very much. And at that point, like Pang Arif was saying, it's quite a short time, but that concludes our Daring Cities virtual session. On behalf of eClay, the organizers, and the speakers, we would like to thank you all for attending this event on stakeholder-driven adaptation and resilience initiatives. We encourage you to help spread the word and take an even more inclusive stance as we collectively address the climate emergency. We also invite you to attend future Daring Cities virtual sessions happening all the way through September. Coming up next on August 30 is a session on climate finance titled Getting Money to Where It's Needed, Digital Finance and Just Transitions. Please go to daringcities.org for more details. Please note that the recordings of all sessions will be made available after Daring Cities, giving you and your colleagues the chance to revisit any missed content. Additionally, the survey form for certificates is in the chat box. Once again, thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our moderator. Thank you to all our attendees. Take care, and we will see you again soon. We'll be closing this Zoom webinar room in a few minutes.